I thought the scariest part working at a Louisiana cemetery would be the silence. I was wrong. The scariest part was realizing something and there was walking around and it stopped at the gate. Not because it couldn't come out, but because it was waiting for me to go back in. The job wasn't supposed to be anything more than a paycheck. That's what I told myself when I took it. Quiet, easy money, 3 nights a week, watching over one of the older cemeteries just outside New Orleans. The kind tourists didn't usually wander into unless they were looking for something specific or thought they were above-ground tombs. Old ones, some so whether the names had worn smooth, like the stone itself had forgotten who was buried there. The man who hired me didn't bother with much of an interview. He just asked if I could stay awake through the night. I told him yes. He nodded once, like that was all that mattered, then handed me a ring of keys and a flashlight that felt older than I was. Lock the gate at 9, he said. Do a walk every hour. If you see anyone inside after that, tell him to leave. That's it. I asked. He hesitated just for a second. Then he said, that's it. The first night, I got there just before sunset. The sky was still holding on to that last stretch of gold, but it didn't reach far into the cemetery. The rows of tombs cut the light into thin strips, long shadows stretching between them like narrow hallways. That was the first thing I noticed. Not the silence, not the smell, the layout. Everything was too tight. The tombs weren't spaced like you'd expect. They were packed together in rows, shoulder to shoulder, with just enough room between them for a single person to walk through. Some paths ended abruptly in dead stone. Others curved just enough that you couldn't see what was waiting around the bend. It didn't feel like a place meant for visitors. It felt like a place meant to keep things in. I locked the gate at 9. The sound of the metal latch clicking into place echoed longer than it should have. It bounced off the stone, carried down the rows, then settled into something quieter, heavier. By then, the light was gone. Not fading. Gone. The kind of dark that doesn't come from the sky, but from the ground up. I clicked on the flashlight. The beam cut a narrow path ahead of me, catching edges of stone, faded carvings, the occasional chipped corner where time had taken its toll. Everything else stayed hidden. The first round was uneventful, just like he said it would be. No visitors, no movement, nothing out of place. I walked the rows slowly, more to get a feel for the layout than anything else. Left at the cracked angel statue, right at the tomb with the broken iron railing, straight until the path narrowed enough that my shoulders brushed stone on either side. I started marking it in my head. Landmarks, turns, dead ends. Because once you were in there, really in there, it all started to look the same. Same height, same color, same quiet. By the time I finished the loop, I was back near the entrance. The gate stood exactly where I'd left it, locked tight, the chain still wrapped through the bars. Beyond it, the world felt normal. A distant car passed somewhere out on the road. I could hear it, faint but steady, like a reminder that everything outside those walls was still moving, still alive. Inside, nothing moved at all. I checked the time. 10:07 p.m., 53 minutes until the next round. I leaned back against a small guard shack that would cool through my shirt and let the silence settle around me. At first, it wasn't so bad. Just quiet, peaceful even, but the longer I stood there, the more I noticed what wasn't there. No insects, no wind, no distant sounds filtering in from a road. Just stillness, thick and unmoving, like the air itself had weight. I pushed off the wall and told myself I was overthinking it. New place, new job, different kind of quiet. That was all. Nothing strange about it. Nothing to worry about. When 11 o'clock finally rolled around, I grabbed the flashlight again and stepped back into the rows. Same path, same turns, same narrow corridors of stone. Everything exactly where it should be. I didn't notice the tomb until I was almost past it. It was just another one in the row. Same pale stone, same worn edges, same heavy door set into the front. But something about it made me stop. I took a step back, angling the flashlight toward it. The beam settled on the door, and for a second, my brain didn't quite process what I was seeing, because nothing looked wrong. Not exactly. No cracks, no damage, no sign of anything being forced. just a simple stone door, set into place like all the others. Except it wasn't closed. Not all the way, just slightly. Barely enough to notice unless you were looking straight at it. A thin line of darkness ran along the edge where it should have been sealed. I stared at it for a moment, waiting for something to click into place. Maybe I'd missed it earlier. Maybe it had always been like that. I stepped closer. The air around it felt cooler, not cold, just less warm than it should have been. I reached out, hesitating for just a second before placing my hand against the stone. It was damp. I frowned, rubbing my fingers together. Probably just humidity. Everything out here felt like it held on to moisture. That had to be it. I gave the door a firm push. It moved easily. Too easily. The stone scraped softly as it slid into place, sealing the gap with a dull, final sound. For a second, I kept my hand there, feeling the weight of it, solid and closed, exactly how it should be. I stepped back, lifting the flashlight to check it one more time. No gap, no shadow, nothing but smooth stone. Yeah, I muttered under my breath. That's better. The sound of my voice felt out of place, swallowed almost immediately by the rows around me. I lingered there for another second, just long enough for a strange thought to cross my mind. Not loud, not even fully formed. Just a quiet little nudge at the back of my thoughts. You didn't see it open the first time. I shook my head, pushing it away. Didn't matter. It was closed now. That's what counted. I turned and continued down the path, the beam of my flashlight sweeping ahead of me. The rows stretched on, identical as ever, still, silent, unchanged. Behind me, the tomb sat exactly as I'd left it, closed, sealed, quiet, and I didn't look back. By the time I finished the second round, I'd almost forgotten about it. Almost. It wasn't until I checked the time again, 11:58 p.m., that I realized something. I hadn't heard a single sound since I closed that door. Not one. Midnight came slowly. The kind of slow that makes you aware of every second passing, every breath, every step. When the clock finally rolled over, I picked up the flashlight for the next round. Same path, same turns, same narrow corridors. Everything exactly where it should be. Until I reached that same row again and saw it. The door was slightly open, exactly the way it had been before. I stopped walking. Not all at once, just slowed, like my body had noticed something before my brain caught up. The beam of the flashlight drifted across the row of tombs, steady in my hand, until it landed on that same pale stone door, that same thin line of darkness. Still there, still open. For a second, I just stared at it, waiting, like it might fix itself if I gave it time. Like, maybe I was remembering wrong. I wasn't. I knew I wasn't. I remembered the weight of it in my hand, the scrape of stone, the way it sealed shut with that dull, final sound. I remembered thinking it was done. No! I muttered under my breath. The word came out quieter than I expected, like the air didn't want to carry it. I stepped closer, slow, careful, like getting too close too fast might. What? Make it worse? The beam of the flashlight steadied on the gap, same as before. Not wide, not forced, just enough to be wrong. I crouched slightly, angling the light to catch the edge of the door, looking for something, anything, a broken hinge, a warp frame, a reason, nothing. The stone was smooth, worn with age but intact. No cracks, no damage, no sign that it should be moving at all. I reached out again. Same hesitation. Same moment where something in the back of my mind said, "Don't." I ignored it. My fingers pressed against the edge of the door. Damp again. Cooler this time. I pushed. The door slid closed with that same low scrape, the sound dragging out longer than it should have. Stone against stone. Heavy. Final. I kept my hand there, pressed flat against it, like I was making sure it stayed. It didn't move, didn't shift, didn't do anything except sit there, solid and sealed. "Okay," I said, a little louder this time. The word bounced once, then disappeared. I stepped back, lifting the flashlight. No gap, no shadow, nothing but smooth stone. I stood there longer than I needed to, just watching it, waiting for something to happen, for it to slide open again, for the stone to shift under my hand, for anything that would make sense of what I was seeing. Nothing happened. Eventually, I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding and straightened up. Humidity, I said like that explained it. Old place. Things shift. It sounded reasonable. It felt reasonable. I turned away, and that should have been it. But I didn't go very far. I had barely made it to the end of the row when something made me stop again. Not a sound, not movement, just a feeling, like I'd forgotten something. I turned halfway back, the flashlight beam dragging across the stone as I moved. It passed over the tomb, paused, still closed. I waited. 1 second. 2. Nothing. I exhaled slowly and turned back again. This time, I kept walking. The rest of the round passed without anything else happening. No more open doors. No strange sounds. No movement in the rows. But something had changed. I noticed it as I made my way back toward the entrance. That same heavy stillness from earlier. It was back. The air felt thicker, closer, like the space between the tombs had narrowed just a little more. And the silence, it wasn't empty anymore. It felt occupied. I stopped near the guard shack, turning slowly in place, the flashlight beam sweeping across the rows. Stone, shadow, more stone, nothing there. And still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. Not in the cemetery. In me. I checked the time. 12:46 a.m. Too early to be this tired. Too early for my thoughts to start wandering like this. I leaned against the shack again, gripping the flashlight a little tighter than before. Just the job. I muttered, walk the rows, close what's open. That's it. Simple. That's what I told myself. And for a while it worked. The next round didn't come fast enough. I kept checking the time, watching the minutes drag past like they were fighting me. 1 a.m. I pushed off the wall before the minute fully turned, already moving back toward the rows. Same path, same turns, same landmarks, everything exactly where it should be, until I reached that row again. This time, I didn't slow down, didn't hesitate, didn't give myself time to think. I swung the flashlight toward the tomb and stopped. The door was open wider than before. Not by much, but enough. Enough that the darkness inside wasn't just a thin line anymore. It was a space. My grip tightened around the flashlight. No, I said again. But this time, it didn't sound like disbelief. It sounded like something else. Something closer to understanding. I stepped forward, slower now. The beam of the light pushed into the opening, cutting through the darkness just enough to show stone steps leading down, and something on the floor. I leaned in slightly, narrowing my eyes, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. It took a second, then it clicked. It was darker than the rest of the stone. Not by much, just enough to stand out. A patch, irregular and uneven. Wet. I didn't move, didn't breathe, just stared at it. And then very slowly, I lowered the flashlight. The beam drifted from the floor to the threshold, to the stone just outside the door. And that's when I saw it. A mark, faint, smudged, but unmistakable. The shape of a footprint, bare, and facing out. I didn't step inside. I want to make that clear. I didn't cross the threshold, didn't touch the steps, didn't do anything that could be mistaken for curiosity. I just stood there, looking. The footprint wasn't deep, not pressing like something heavy had stepped there. Just a smear, darker than the stone, slightly uneven, like whatever made it hadn't been completely dry. 5 faint impressions where toes should be. A heel that didn't quite connect all the way. Facing out. I swallowed, my throat suddenly dry. Okay, I said, though it came out more like a breath than a word. My flashlight trembled just enough to make the shadows shift inside the tomb. The steps leading down disappeared into darkness after only a few feet. The beam didn't reach far enough to show the bottom. Didn't reach far enough to show much of anything, except that wet patch. Still there, still wrong. I dragged the light back to the doorway, to the footprint, then just past it. There was another one, fainter, smudged thinner, like whatever made it hadn't pressed down as hard. But it was there, just beyond the first. I leaned forward slightly, angling the beam farther along the path. Another, and another, each one just a little lighter, then the last leading away from the tomb. My stomach tightened. No, I whispered, because now it wasn't just a door that wouldn't stay closed. Now it was something else. Something that had a direction. I followed the prints with the light, not my feet. Kept my distance. Watched the way they stretched down the narrow walkway between the tombs. They didn't go far. Maybe 6 or 7 steps. Then they stopped. Not faded, just ended. Like something had taken those steps. And then wasn't there anymore. I stood there longer than I should have, trying to make it make sense. Someone got in. That was the first thought. Had to be. Someone climbed the gate, came in here, messed around, and left. But that didn't fit. The gate was still locked. I had checked it. Twice. No scuff marks. No bent bars. No sign that anyone had forced their way in or out. And even if they had, why the bare feet? Why the water? Why stop in the middle of the path? I exhaled slowly, forcing my shoulders to relax. Someone's messing with you, I said under my breath. It sounded better out loud. More solid. I stepped forward. Carefully. Not toward the tomb. Toward the prints. I crouched near the first one outside the door, keeping just enough distance that I didn't accidentally step into it. The light hovered over it. Steady now. Up close, it looked even worse. Not a clean shape. Not a clear outline. It looked like something that had been a footprint and then shifted, smeared slightly at the edges, like it hadn't fully decided what it was. I reached out, stopped. My hand hovered just above the stone, close enough that I could feel the coolness rising from it, close enough that I knew it was still wet. I pulled my hand back like I'd almost touched something hot. Okay, I said again, sharper this time. Nope. I stood up quickly, the movement louder than it should have been in the stillness. The sound of my shoes scraping against the stone seemed to echo between the tombs, bouncing back at me from angles I couldn't see. Too loud. Everything felt too loud now. I turned back toward the tomb. The door still hung open, wider than before, waiting. For a second, just a second, I had the thought to close it again. But something about that idea sat wrong. Heavier than before. Like it wasn't my job anymore. Like I'd already done that part. I backed away instead. Slow at first, then faster. The flashlight beam jumped with my steps, catching pieces of stone, flashes of carved names, the edges of other doors closed, sealed, unmoving. All except that one. I didn't turn my back on it. Not fully. Not until the road curved just enough that I couldn't see it anymore. And even then, it felt like I should still be able to. Like it hadn't really left my line of sight. I didn't finish the round. I told myself I would, that I just needed a minute. But somehow, I ended up back at the guard shack without remembering the walk. The gate was still locked, exactly where it should be. Everything was exactly where it should be, except for that one tomb. I checked the time. 1:23 a.m. Too early. Still too early. I set the flashlight down on the small wooden ledge, then picked it right back up again almost immediately. Didn't like not holding it. Didn't like not having that narrow beam of control. My mind kept circling the same questions. Same dead ends. Someone got in. No, they couldn't have. Animal? No, not with prints like that. Condensation? Humidity? No, because humidity doesn't walk. I squeezed my eyes shut for a second, pressing my thumb against my forehead. Finish the shift, I muttered. That's it. Just finish the shift. Simple. Just a few more hours. A few more rounds. Nothing else had to happen. Nothing else would happen. I grabbed the flashlight tighter, forcing my feet to move again, back toward the rows. Same path. Same turns. Same landmarks. But now, every step felt like I was walking into something. Not toward a place. Toward a pattern. And somewhere behind me, I could have sworn I heard it. A soft sound. Not a step. Not quite. Something damp touching stone. I froze. Completely. The sound didn't come again. Not right away. Which somehow made it worse. Because now I couldn't tell if I'd actually heard it or if my brain had just filled in the silence with something it shouldn't have. I turned slowly. Too slowly. Like if I moved any faster, I might catch something in motion. The flashlight beam dragged across the stone behind me. Row after row. Closed doors. Unbroken lines. Nothing out of place. Nothing moving. I waited, listened, held my breath without meaning to. Silence. Thick, heavy, pressing in from all sides. "You're fine," I whispered. It didn't sound convincing. I forced myself to turn back around, to keep walking. Same path, same turns. But I didn't go as far this time. Didn't make it back to that row. I stopped halfway through the next corridor, the walls of stone tight on either side, the path narrowing just enough that I could feel it brushing my shoulders again. That was when I noticed it. Not ahead of me. To the right, a door slightly open. My stomach dropped. "No," I said immediately. Too fast. Too certain. Because I hadn't been down this row yet. Hadn't touched anything here. I knew that. I stepped closer anyway. Because of course I did. The beam of the flashlight settled on the gap. Same as before. Thin and precise. Intentional. Not broken or forced. Just open. I stood there for a long second, staring at it, trying to convince myself it had always been that way, that I just hadn't noticed. But that wasn't true. I would have noticed, wouldn't I? The thought didn't help. I reached out again, slower this time, more careful. My fingers hovered just before the stone, and I felt it, that same coolness, that same faint dampness in the air around the door. Before I even touched it, I pulled my hand back. "No," I said again, quieter now, because something had shifted. Before it was one tomb, one problem, one thing I could explain away if I tried hard enough. Now it wasn't. Now it was repeating. I lifted the flashlight, angling it down toward the base of the door, toward the stone just outside it, waiting, expecting. There it was, a footprint, fainter than the others, but still there. I let out a slow breath, my chest tightening as it left. "Okay," I said, more to hear something than anything else. "Okay, someone's in here." That had to be it. Had to be. Someone was moving through the cemetery, opening doors, tracking water, messing with me. It was the only explanation that made sense, even if it didn't make good sense. I stepped back, lifting the flashlight higher, sweeping it down the corridor. "Hey!" I called out. The word hit the stone and came back thinner, weaker. "Cemetery's closed." I tried again. "If you're in here, you need to leave." Nothing. No movement. No sound. Just that same pressing silence. I swallowed, my grip tightening on the flashlight. "Gate's locked," I added louder now. "You're not supposed to be in here." The beam of light shook slightly as I moved it, scanning the gaps between the tombs, the corners where shadows gathered thicker than they should have. Still nothing. But now it felt different. Before, the silence had felt empty. Now it felt occupied, like something was listening, not from one direction, from all of them. I backed away from the open door. Slow, careful. I didn't turn my back this time. Didn't let the beam drift away from it, because something in me had started to understand something else. It wasn't just opening them. It was choosing where and when. I kept moving backward until the row curved and the door slipped out of sight. Only then did I turn. Only then did I let myself walk faster. Not running. Not yet, but close. The path twisted slightly ahead, narrowing, bending just enough that I couldn't see what was around the next turn. I slowed again, because now I wasn't just worried about what was behind me. I was thinking about what might be waiting in front of me. The flashlight beam reached the corner first, slid along the stone, then turned with me and landed on the next row. I stopped. There were more. 2 doors, both slightly open. My breath caught in my throat. "No," I whispered, because this wasn't random anymore. This wasn't coincidence. This was a pattern, and it was spreading. I took a step back. Then another. The beam of the flashlight shook now, not from the movement, but from my hand. "Okay," I said, forcing the word out through clenched teeth. "Okay, we're done. That's enough." I turned. This time, I didn't hesitate. I walked straight back the way I came. Faster now, steps echoing too loud against the stone. Didn't care. Didn't care if someone heard me. Didn't care if something followed. I just needed to get back to the gate, back to something that made sense. The rows blurred slightly as I moved through them, the landmarks coming too fast, too close together. Left at the cracked angel, right at the broken railing, straight. I stopped. The path ahead was wrong. I stared at it, my breath coming a little quicker now. This wasn't the way back. It couldn't be. There should have been a turn, a bend, something. Instead, there were more rows and more tombs. And in the distance, just barely visible in the edge of the flashlight's reach, another door was slightly open. I didn't move, not at first. I just stood there, staring at the path like it might fix itself if I gave a second, like the turn I was expecting would just appear. It didn't. The flashlight beam stretched out in front of me, thin and weak against the stone, catching edges and corners that all looked the same. Same pale walls, same narrow spacing, same dead ends hiding just out of sight. This isn't right, I said. The words sounded smaller than I meant them to. I turned halfway around, lifting the light behind me. That wasn't right either. The row I'd just come from looked longer, too long, like the distance had stretched when I wasn't looking. A slow, creeping pressure settled in my chest. No, I said again, sharper now. No, I know this place. I did. I'd walked it twice already. Marked the turns. Noticed the landmarks. Left at the angel. Right at the railing. Straight. I turned back forward quickly. That open door was still there. In the distance. Waiting. I narrowed my eyes, adjusting the beam, trying to judge how far it was. Too far. It hadn't looked that far before. I took a step back, then stopped, because something about that felt wrong too. Like stepping backward wasn't actually taking me away from it. Like distance didn't mean anything anymore. My grip tightened around the flashlight. Okay, I muttered. Think. Panic wasn't going to help. Running definitely wasn't going to help. I forced myself to breathe slower. In and out. Then I turned to the left. Not the way I came. Not toward the open door. Just another direction. The path narrowed almost immediately. The walls pressing in closer than before. The stone brushing my shoulders again. Good. That felt familiar. I moved forward carefully, keeping the beam low, watching the ground. No footprints. That helped a little. But then I stopped. The light had caught something. I shifted it slightly. There, a mark, faint, facing forward. My stomach dropped. No, I whispered, because I hadn't gone this way before. I knew I hadn't, but the footprint was fresh, still damp, still darker than the stone around it. And it wasn't alone. Another one, then another, leading down the path, in the direction I was already facing. My chest tightened, breath coming shorter now. Okay, I said quickly, backing up a step. Okay, no, we're not doing that. I turned sharply, swinging the flashlight back the way I'd come, and froze. The path behind me was gone. Not gone like it had disappeared. Gone like it didn't exist the way I remembered. The spacing was wrong. The angle was off. The walls didn't line up the way they should have. It wasn't the same corridor. I stared at it, my mind scrambling to make sense of it. That's not, I started, then stopped, because arguing with it didn't change anything. I turned again, faster now. Every direction looked the same. Every path narrowed. Every corner curved just enough to hide what was next. And everywhere there were doors. Not all open, but enough that I couldn't ignore it anymore. One here, slightly open. Another farther down. Same gap, same thin line of darkness. And in between them, footprints. Not everywhere. Just enough. Like markers. Guides. Leading somewhere. Or leading me. My breathing picked up, loud in the silence, echoing off the stone in short, sharp bursts. Stop. I whispered, more to myself than anything else. Just stop. Just stand still. So I did. I stood there, forcing my body to go quiet, forcing my breathing to slow. If I wasn't moving, then it couldn't track me, right? The thought felt thin, fragile, but I held on to it anyway. Seconds passed, or maybe minutes. It was hard to tell. The silence pressing tighter. Then there was again. That sound. Soft, damp, a faint, almost sticky contact against stone. Behind me, closer this time. I closed my eyes for a second. Just a second. Didn't want to turn. Didn't want to see. But not turning felt worse. Slowly, I opened my eyes. Turned. The flashlight beam swung wide and landed on the ground, just in time to see it. A footprint, forming, right there on the stone. Darkness spreading outward. Moisture seeping into the surface. Toe by toe. Heel last. Like something had just stepped there without anything there. I didn't breathe. I couldn't. My lungs locked up somewhere between panic and disbelief. Like even they weren't sure what they were looking at. The footprint finished forming. Right in front of me, the last bit of moisture spread into the heel, darkening the stone just enough to complete the shape. Then nothing. No leg. No body. No movement. Just a mark. My hand tightened around the flashlight. So hard my fingers started to ache. No, I whispered, because this wasn't possible. Because things didn't just appear. Didn't just happen without something making them happen. But I'd seen it. I'd watched it. Slow. Deliberate. Like something had stepped forward and stopped right there. I forced myself to look up. The beam of the flashlight climbed to the ground to the empty space above it. Nothing. Just air. Just darkness. But it didn't feel empty. It felt occupied. Like I was pointing the light directly at something that wasn't letting itself be seen. My throat tightened. Someone's here. I said louder now. Not because I believed it. Because I needed to. Hey! I called, voice cracking slightly. This isn't funny. You need to leave. The words hit the stone and fell flat. No echo this time. That was new. That was wrong. Because everything echoed in here. Everything except that. I swallowed hard, taking a slow step back. The footprint stayed where it was. Didn't fade. Didn't change. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had. That whatever had made it was still standing there. Right where I was pointing the light. Watching me. I took another step back. Then another. My heel caught slightly on uneven stone and I stumbled. The beam jerking wildly across the walls. Stone. Shadow. Open door. Closed door. Another open. I froze again. Because the doors weren't where they'd been before. There were more now. Closer. The gaps between them narrower. Like the rows themselves were shifting. Closing in. No, no, no. I muttered, turning a slow circle, the light sweeping across everything at once now. Every direction looked wrong. Every path led somewhere I hadn't seen before. And every few steps, another door, slightly open, watching, waiting. My breathing came faster now, uneven, too loud in the silence. Gate. I whispered. Just get back to the gate. Simple. There had to be a way out. There always was. I picked a direction. Didn't think about it. Didn't try to map it. Just moved. Fast. The beam bounced with every step. Shadows stretching and snapping back as I passed. The walls brushing closer than before, the air thicker. Then a sound. Not behind me. Not in front. Beside me. Close. That same damn contact. But this time it didn't stop. I skidded to a halt. The light snapping to side. Just in time to see it. Another footprint. Forming. Then another and another. One after the other. Moving. Keeping pace with me. My chest seized. No! I choked. Stumbling back. The beam shaking violently now. No, no. They didn't stop. Step. 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 Each one appearing just as the last finished. Perfectly spaced. Perfectly timed. Like something was walking beside me. Matching me. I turned and ran. Didn't care where. Didn't care if it was the right direction. The rows blurred. The flashlight beam barely keeping up, catching flashes of stone and shadow, and open doors that looked wider now. Too wide. And the sound, God, the sound. Wet, soft, right next to me, keeping pace. Not faster. Not slower. Exactly the same. Like it didn't need to chase me. Like it already had me. I pushed harder, lungs burning now, legs threatening to give out. And then I saw it. The gate, just ahead. Dark metal cutting across the path like a promise. Relief hit, so hard it almost dropped me where I stood. Yes, I gasped, sprinting toward it. Yes, yes, yes. I reached it in seconds, grabbing the bars, yanking at the chain. Locked. Still locked. Exactly how I'd left it. I fumbled with the keys, hands shaking so badly I could barely grip them. Behind me, the footsteps stopped. Just stopped. The silence that followed was worse than the sound. Slowly I turned. The flashlight beam shook as it lifted. The path behind me stretched back into darkness. Empty. Still. No movement. No figure. No shape. Just a stone. And on it, a single line of footprints, leading all the way up to me and stopping right at my feet. The keys slipped from my hand. They hit the ground with a sharp clatter that felt way too loud in the silence. I didn't pick them up. I couldn't take my eyes off the footprints. They ended right in front of me, not faded, not smeared, clear and deliberate. The last one still darker than the others, still wet, like it had just been made. My breath came in short, shallow bursts, fogging slightly in the beam of the flashlight. No! I whispered, because if it had stopped there, then that meant. I forced my eyes up slowly. Nothing. Just the gate. Just the bars. Just the empty air between them. But it wasn't empty. I could feel it. That same pressure from before. That same sense of something occupying the space right in front of me. Close enough to touch. My hand tightened around the flashlight. Back up, I said. I don't know if I was talking to it or to myself. Just back up. The words sounded thin. Pointless. Nothing moved. Nothing changed. And somehow that was worse. I swallowed hard, forcing my hand to move. The keys. I needed the keys. I crouched slowly, keeping the flashlight trained forward as much as I could, my free hand reaching blindly toward the ground. My fingers brushed cold metal. Got them. I straightened quickly, fumbling to find the right one, the metal clinking softly as they shook in my grip. Come on. Come on. The beam wavered, dipping for just a second. I jammed the key into the lock, missing the slot the first time, scraping metal against metal. Come on. I snapped, panic breaking through now. Behind the beam, another footprint formed. Toe, then the rest. Slow, deliberate, right where the empty air should have been. I shoved the key in again. It caught. I turned the key. The lock clicked. Loud. Too loud. I yanked the chain free, dragging it loose in the gate, the metal rattling as it fell away. Another step. Closer. I could feel it now. Not just pressure. Presence. Just beyond the light. I pulled the gate open hard, the hinges groaning as it swung outward. Fresh air hit me. Cooler. Lighter. I slammed the gate shut behind me. The metal rang out, sharp and final, echoing through the rows of tombs. My hands moved on instinct, threading the chain through, locking it. Click. Sealed. I staggered back, breathing hard, the flashlight still raised, beam cutting through the bars. The path inside stretched into darkness. Empty. Still. For a moment, nothing happened. Relief came too fast. Okay, I whispered. Okay, it's done. Then, a footprint appeared on the other side of the gate, right where I had been standing seconds ago. My breath caught. Another formed beside it. Then another. They moved toward the gate, slow and deliberate. My grip tightened on the flashlight. No, I whispered. The print stopped just inches from the bars. Waiting. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. The beam shook as I held it there, aimed straight ahead at nothing. The air shifted. That same pressure. Right there, on the other side. Close enough that if the bars weren't between us, I would have been standing face to face with it. Another footprint formed. Not forward, not closer, but sideways. Then another. It began to move along the inside of the gate, pacing, matching me as I slowly backed away, like it was walking the boundary. I shook my head, stumbling back farther. I backed away until the gate was several yards in front of me, the beam growing weaker against the darkness inside. The footprints kept moving, slower now but steady, watching, waiting. I turned. I didn't run this time. I walked fast, but controlled, because something in me said to not give it the satisfaction. Don't let it think you're prey. The path stretched ahead, the trees swallowing the cemetery behind me step by step. But even as it disappeared from view, I could still hear it, faint and distant, pacing just on the other side. I quit the next day. Didn't give notice. Didn't explain. Just handed over the keys and left. They asked why. I said it wasn't a good fit. They laughed and said no one lasted long there anyway. That should have made me feel better. It didn't, because they didn't know. They hadn't stayed late. Hadn't locked the gate in the dark. Hadn't watched something walk where nothing stood. I didn't go back. Not once. Didn't drive by. Didn't look at it. Didn't even take the same roads anymore. I told myself that was enough. That whatever was in there stayed in there. It had to. It never crossed a gate. I saw that. It knew the boundary and was trapped by it. It couldn't leave. That's what I told myself. That's what I held on to. I almost believed it. Until something small would happen. A reflection that felt just slightly off. A sound that echoed a second too late. Footsteps, not behind me. But not quite mine either. I'd stop and hold my breath. Listen. Nothing. Always nothing. I don't visit cemeteries anymore. Don't linger near gates. Don't stand too close to thresholds. Some things don't follow you out. They just wait to see if you'll come back. If this story gave you chills, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. This is Whispers in the Weird, where every state has a story and some of them don't stay where they belong. I'll see you in the next one, if you're still brave enough.